Well, I said just last night at a rally that, you know, they're always looking for some cleric to blame, some Muslim organization to proscribe, to try and check the radicalization of Muslim youth in Britain. How much more radical have Muslim youth become in the last few weeks as a result of this massacre that they're watching on their television every night? Do you think that the American government will change its line?
Well, I mean, Obama, I mean, so far Obama's a hero, you know, inscribed on all our hearts, I think. And but the hopes pinned to Obama are so immense on every single ground, aren't they? I mean, already in the last 10 days, people, a lot of Arabs are upset that he spoke out on Mumbai, he's spoken out on the economy, but he has remained silent on Gaza, which is rather worrying. But on the other hand, you know, I would pin all my hopes to Obama. I don't think the so-called pro-Israel lobby is totally impregnable in America, and it doesn't serve America's interests. It simply doesn't, as you say, it doesn't serve America's interests.
Well, I'm going to the United States in March for a speaking tour, coast to coast, and it'll be called the Palestine Tour, and I'm going to be arguing that Palestine is the key, that it's the flaw at the heart of Western policy towards the East, and as long as it's shattered into 1,000 pieces like we're watching, then it's going to be very difficult to put it together again. What about the British government's performance?
Well, so far, terrible. I mean, listening to Gordon Brown talking about tunnels and Hamas rockets, I almost wanted to just turn off. I just couldn't make any sense of it. I mean, there's Sarkozy, who's being hyperactive.
Yes.
Really thinking about this, rushing off to the Middle East, you know, really trying to impose a plan. I mean, obviously being criticised because the Czechs should really be doing this, not the French. But no, I'm very, very upset by the incredibly pathetic behaviour of both Gordon Brown and Tony Blair. Well, Tony Blair has been really quite silent for the last year. I don't know what he's been doing.
The peace envoy, no less.
Yeah, no less.
Not, as I put it, not since Caligula made his horse a proconsul of Rome has there been a more inappropriate appointment.
Exactly.
Trevor Mostyn, look forward to your novel. Thank you very much. After the break, I'll be talking to Abdel Bari Atwan, the founder and distinguished editor of Al-Quds, about his beginnings in Gaza, about his son who's there now, and how this horror is going to end. Don't go away. Welcome back to The Real Deal with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV each and every week at this time. I'll be talking to Abdel Bari Atwan shortly, but before that I want to briefly look back at the events which happened on this day in history, which have helped to shape our present. Today in 1922, the first diabetes patient to be successfully treated by the use of insulin occurred at Toronto General Hospital in Canada. 6 years later on this day in 1928, Leon Trotsky, a renegade former leader of the Bolshevik Revolution and early architect of the Soviet state, was deported by Joseph Stalin to Almaty in remote Soviet Central Asia. Trotsky lived in internal exile for a year before being banished from the USSR forever by Stalin, and of course later died under an assassin's pickaxe in Mexico in 1940. And finally, in 1988, after 8 years as President of the United States, Ronald Reagan gave his farewell address to the American people. In particular, Reagan emphasized the foreign policy achievements of his administration. Well, they've certainly lived on to this day. Now, I've known and admired my next guest, Abdel Bari Atwan, for more than 30 years. He was born into a Gazan refugee camp. His family is still in Gaza today. Abdel Bari, welcome. First of all, tell us, which camp were you born in? Has it been attacked? And how are your family?
Actually, I was born in Deir al-Balah refugee camp. My family now in Rafah refugee camps. And at this moment in particular, the Israelis are bombing the camps there. They ask the people to leave. They throw tens of thousands of leaflets saying to them, evacuate your houses, it will be bombed.
Leave to where? Leave to where?
You know, George, what amazed me, in every war, you know, people are allowed to leave the war zone to run for their lives. That's what happened when they bombed Iraq first time. That's what happened when the Kuwaiti, they can leave to Saudi Arabia, to the Gulf states. Iraqi could leave to Syria, could leave to Jordan. But you know, when it comes to Gaza, it is a concentrated camp. You know, people cannot leave. You know, my brother, I phoned my brother. I said to him, what's this in Rafah? I said, what's the situation? He said, My brother, I don't know. People are grabbing anything they can and run, and they don't know where to go. Because, you know, they go there, they bomb. They go there, they bomb. And casualties everywhere, death everywhere. And they are bombed from the sea, from the air, from the grounds. And Gaza is very small. It's 150 square miles.
For 1.5 million
For 1.5 million.
people.
It's flesh over flesh. And this is the problem. And it's, you know, I can't put it that way. As if you are using a missile, a cruise missile, to kill, you know, sort of, you know, a bird in a cage. That's exactly what's happening in Gaza. And the problem is this West, who are lecturing us about human rights, about humanity, about international law, about Geneva Convention, you know, they are absolutely silent. They lost the moral grounds. You know, that where the people can go. That's the problem. Why Israel doesn't open its border to take those people? They say, we are caring about civilians. We don't want children to be killed. We are very careful. But what we have seen until now is children who are killed.
Well, well over 300 of the dead are women and children, and the vast majority of those are children. And of course, the men who've died are not criminals. This is one of the issues I want to discuss with you. The BBC and Sky and the others, despite your heroic efforts on these stations to explain patiently, with extraordinary patience, they continue to refer to Hamas targets, Hamas militants. But given that Hamas are the elected government of the Palestinians, this is the legitimate armed forces of the elected Palestinian government that are being slaughtered in police stations which were built by European Union taxpayers with our tax money. Doesn't it drive you as mad as it drives me, this constant equation of the Palestinians, every Palestinian fighter has to be a militant or a terrorist?
This is the problem with the Western media here. They dehumanize that anybody who is against the Israeli or who is against the West. And they actually use this stereotype all the time in order to convince people that Hamas is evil and Hamas is a terrorist, Hamas is Islamic fundamentalist, and they don't have the right to live. And this is absolutely distortions of the facts on the ground. Again, I would like to refer to my family there in Gaza. I phoned my cousin, who is Fatah, and he is always supporting Fatah. And I said to him, how is the situation now? He said, you know, I'll tell you something. We are all Hamas. We are all resistance. There is no division between Fatah and Hamas. You know, the Israeli are bombing everybody. The Israeli missiles and bombs don't discriminate between Fatah and Hamas. They are killing everybody. So this is the problem with the Western media. When you try to explain to them, say, look, you know, Hamas was elected. It has the majority in the Palestinian parliament, the legislative council there. And they are entitled to rule. They set up a government. But why Hamas government collapsed? Simply because Israel refused to recognize it. The American followed the Israeli step. The European followed the Israelis. So that's the problem we are facing. But in the top of that, Hamas is a human being. You know, they don't have Tomahawk missiles. They don't have, you know, cruise missiles. They don't have warplanes. They don't have anti-aircraft guns. They have nothing, absolutely nothing. But when you look at the Western media here, you think Hamas is the Soviet Union at its peak.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Well, I was making the point at the top of the show that I was never myself a supporter of Hamas. I was always loyal to President Arafat, God rest his soul, and I so wish he was here today. But they have made us all Hamas, because this unjustified barbarism is, as you say, completely undifferentiated, undiscriminated. And how could it be otherwise? If you fire a tank or from a warship or drop a bomb on an apartment block, how can that be said to be targeting? You are killing everything in the way of the shell or the rocket.